Hi guys, welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content about childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with my experience of going through this childhood abuse. So if this is the type of content that you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified of any new uploads. And if you do like the videos, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. So guys, before I get into the video, you probably noticed I am wearing a hat today. I'm having a really bad day. I'm not really feeling too well, but I wanted to come to do this video today because it's something I've been thinking about this week. And what I'm going to be talking to you today about is in relation to patterns. And I wanted to kind of share with you today some things that alerted me to the fact that something was wrong during the time I was going through my abuse, but I didn't actually have a name for what it was. So just a little bit of a background for those of you who are new here and don't really know my story. I was sexually abused from the age of 9 to 13 years old by my birth father. I didn't actually have a name for what had happened to me until the age of 13. That is when Childline paid a visit to my secondary school. They were going around the schools in late 1988, 1989, talking to students in different schools about what abuse is. And it was during one of these classes that this representative from Childline came and spoke to us as a class. And it was in that class that I finally had a name after 5 years for what my father was doing to me, and that is childhood sexual abuse. If you are still triggered by things to do with childhood sexual abuse, or if you may find this topic upsetting, it might be best to either turn it off at this point or skip this part and watch the rest of the video, or to come back later when you feel that you can listen to it. But I just want to give that little kind of disclaimer because I know a lot of people do get upset about this, especially if they've gone through it themselves. The very first time that it happened, I was 9 years old. I was at home with my dad, and then basically my dad told me to, well, he called me from upstairs. I was downstairs in the living room and he told me to come upstairs. I was thinking he was going to send me to the shop or to do chores or something because I, told a lie and said I was sick to stay off school so that I could spend time with my mum. Anyway, when I went upstairs and knocked on the bedroom door, that is the very first sign that I knew that something was wrong. When I entered the room, my dad asked me to get into the bed with him. Now, as a family, me, my brother and sister, I was the oldest, and my mum and dad, we lived as a family unit in this house. At no point during our time that I know of, that I can remember, was we ever allowed to just get into our parents' bed. It was not something that we did usually as a family. I know there are families out there that have, that kind of time when everybody piles onto the bed, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in our family, that's not something we did. We weren't allowed to get under the sheets with our parents. We weren't allowed to all just pile on the bed like that. And that was the very first thing as a 9-year-old that alerted me that something was wrong, because of the pattern of how our family had been. Not just the fact that I was being asked by a parent to get into the bed, but the fact that it was my father that was asking me to get into the bed. My mum wasn't around, my brother and sister wasn't around. I definitely felt that there was something wrong, but I couldn't actually put my finger on it. He was the type of person where that if he had to ask you to do something a second time, you'd be in trouble. As children, that is how it was in our home. So when he asked me to get into the bed, me sensing something was wrong and feeling scared, but also at the same time having this sense of, my dad was not somebody that you could disrespect. My dad was not somebody that you would make him ask you to do things twice. I got into the bed. Now, when I got into the bed, my dad was naked. That, again, to me, was something that was not in the pattern of how things went in our household. Never saw my parents naked. Even, going to the bathroom or coming out of the bath, that is not something we ever witnessed with our parents. That was the very first time that my dad sexually abused me. He raped me on that occasion, and I've shared in my book and in my story how in that moment it felt like an out-of-body experience, and how in that moment something in me changed, that even up to today, as a 47-year-old woman who has healed from her experiences, I'm not able to articulate the words of exactly what changed in me the first time that my dad sexually abused me. It was definitely an experience for me that was definitely life-changing. And because the abuse happened over a period of time, as I mentioned, 5 years, every Friday and Saturday, my dad, taking me out of my house and taking me over to my mother's house across the estate, and also on weekdays coming into the bathroom and sexually assaulting me in the bathroom. I then started to notice other patterns as I was quite hypervigilant. I, was always on alert, always anxious. It, made me observe things a bit more closely. So another pattern that I noticed is that when my dad was taking me out of the house on Friday and Saturday nights, he was, obviously coming in from pub or work very late, coming in me and my sister's room, waking me up, and telling me to go and wait under the stairs, which is the downstairs, whilst he was doing something, and then told me to get my coat on when he came downstairs and took me out the house late at night. The pattern that I noticed is that it wasn't happening to my brother and sister. My brother and sister were not going through the same things as me. I used to look for signs that they were. Like when they had their evening wash, was he going in and, doing things to them in the bathroom, or going into the bathroom when they were in there? No, he wasn't. Also, he wasn't taking them out of the house late at night. What it did, those experiences, was to confirm to me wrongly that I was a bad child, that, I was not a good girl, because obviously this behaviour was for the fact that I told this lie, to say I was sick and had stomachache to stay off school with my mum. And this was my punishment for it, Obviously, that was not the right way to think. But as a 9-year-old with no understanding what was going on with me, not a name for what was happening to me, and seeing this behaviour that my dad had singled out for me, this is what it said to me, that I was the cause of this behaviour because my brother and sister wasn't going through it. So those patterns I noticed, he wasn't doing it to them. He wasn't singling them out for this behaviour. Another thing that I noticed is when I was about 10 years old, my dad wanted to leave my mum and leave the family home. And, they were arguing upstairs, and then I was called upstairs to the bedroom, and my dad said to me that he wanted to take me to leave with him. And obviously my mum was crying, begging him to stay. So in him only wanting to take me and not my brother and sister, again, it made me think about the bad things that he was doing to me, and that he wanted to continue to do those things to me. On leaving that room, because when I was up there in their bedroom and he asked me if I would go with him, and I said no, because I was hoping if I said no, he would just leave anyway, because I didn't want him doing what he was doing to me anymore. In leaving the bedroom and going back downstairs, and telling my brother and sister about it, my brother, I think it was, said to me, why is he only want to take you? So those are things that I noticed during this time period that alerted me, these patterns of behaviour with my dad. So those are just some of the patterns of things that I noticed during that time when I was going through sexual abuse that alerted me that something wasn't right. And that's one of the reasons why I say it's so important that children at a young age are educated on childhood sexual abuse. I don't want a child to have to wait till they're like 13 years old in secondary school, for an organisation or for somebody to tell them that, this is wrong what they're going through. Whoever's doing it to them, it shouldn't have to be a thing they have to wait so long. But, again, I think today things are probably a bit different in terms of the fact that they have things like the NSPCC underwear rule, which is aimed at younger children. But I do think that children should be told in an age appropriate way about the dangers that can happen within their own families to do with childhood sexual abuse. Because what usually used to happen, and I'm not sure if it's happening anymore now, is that sexual abuse in childhood was always associated with stranger danger. I've talked about this on other videos before, about the man in the dirty Mac in the park, the deviant stranger, when it's rarely like that. Those cases are probably only maybe even 10%. 90% of childhood sexual abuse is committed by someone the child knows, loves and trusts. So therefore, I think it's really important that children from an early age, even from nursery, are taught in an age-appropriate way about boundaries, about sexual abuse, in a way that they can understand. And I really do stand by this, because the same way that children are now accessing on tablets, phones, pop stars and rappers and that sing really sexually explicit lyrics, which they're singing and they don't have no clue about. I believe that they should be able to access this information, which is protection for them from this type of deviant behaviour. So I just really wanted to share that with you, because obviously as time has gone on over the years, and as I've grown and reflected and healed from many things, I've been able to look on different things to do with my experience from a different view, not from the view of being in it, being a survivor of it, but from somebody who is also educating organisations and different practitioners and professionals on this topic of childhood sexual abuse. So that is it for this video. Hopefully in the next one I shall be feeling much better. But until the next one, take care.